Good afternoon, everyone. A warm welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Amrita and I will be the host for this session. I represent the IT/ITS Sector Skill Council NASCOM. Under the aegis of NSDC, we are the national standard setting body for technology skills in India. The agenda for today's session is virtual interviews, which will possibly be the new norm in the age of social distancing and COVID 19. We at SSC NASCOM strongly believe that this will be the need of the hour for the student community as we get ready for the future of work. Before we begin, let me explain how you can talk to us during the webinar. If you have questions during the presentation, please make use of the Q&A button and we will try to address as many as we can. After the 45-minute presentation, we will have 15 minutes reserved for Q&A. Do keep your questions crisp. Also, please note the event is being broadcast live on the SSC NASCOM Facebook page. Now, it is a pleasure to introduce the speaker for today's session, Mr. Sujit Kumar, Associate Vice President Human Resources at Infosys. He has over 19 years of professional experience in diversified areas of HR and is a prominent orator. Here's something phenomenal. Sujit has delivered over 2,100 guest lectures and loves interacting with young minds. Over to you, Sujit.
Thank you. Thank you, Amrita. And thank you, NASCOM Sector Skill Council, for having me over. I think it's phenomenal to do this webinar, and I'm told that we are kind of creating a history of sorts with the kind of registrations that we have received for this wonderful program. So it's complete honor on my end to be part of this lovely initiative from your side. So let's quickly get into this session, and I want to give you a brief agenda on what I would like to cover. So first thing first, there is no PowerPoint presentation. One, I hate to do PPTs, and two, it kills the creativity. For that much, as a participant, what I would like you to do is, if you have a pen and paper right next to you, make notes of the session in the language which you understand. Okay? So what you will find in this 1 hour session, 45 minutes plus this 15 minutes of Q&A, is you will find a lot of real life scenarios, right? So based on my experience as an interviewer, I also run a foundation with about 900 students, so I have to train them on preparing them for interviews. So the kind of experiences that I've had, the kind of goof ups that I've seen people committing in a virtual interview, knowingly or unknowingly. So it is more about learning from each other's mistake, is what the session has been put together. So what will we cover in this session? We will, number one, cover what are the common myths about an interview and virtual interview per se. What do you do before the interview? Because a lot of focus is on the actual interview process. But to me, 60% of that should happen before the interview. So the preparation for the interview, what do you do before the interview, is becoming very, very critical. What do you do during the interview and post interview? And of course, we will present some interesting the anecdotes of some of the common goof ups that I've seen from the interview candidates, and sometimes from the interviewer as well. So let's get this. Now with COVID situation, I think there is a lot of discussion around, will we lose jobs, etc. In my view, I think the future looks bright for anybody who reskills and upskills himself. And so that way, it's going to be a very, very interesting time. But there will be ups and downs in each of our careers. So for example, if you are an engineering student, the boom that you started in the first year, by the time you finish your second and third year, you will see a lull sometimes. Sometimes when you pass out, you see an upward trend, and so on and so forth. So I just want to start this session by saying, stay positive, make this time, make the best use of this time to reskill and upskill yourselves, equip yourself with certification, and be ready as and when the interview process is going to start. Now, is virtual interview something new? Is it a new buzzword? No, the answer is no. It has never been a scenario of virtual versus physical interview, right? So virtual interview was already an integral part of our interview process. So there is a resume that comes to an organization, then the recruiter will set up time with you to do a telephonic round. Then there is a virtual interview in terms of a Skype interview or any other video platforms that we use. And then the last stage always used to be a physical interview, which used to happen. But with the current situation which is going around, I think virtual interview, the importance of virtual interviews is going to increase manifold times. So good number of decisions will be made over a video call or video conference kind of a scenario. So as so far, it's been a complementing approach, but I think my prediction is that this is going to go increasingly from now on. Now it has its own advantages. A lot of people, when I train people for virtual interviews, there is this analogy. People say that people are averse to virtual interview. Well, my study doesn't say that. I actually interviewed about 37 people in the last a few months using the virtual medium. And when I asked them, particularly for this session, when I said, look, I'm going to do a session like this for students, what has been your experience? How comfortable were you? Actually, the response is 50-50. 50% of them felt that they would still prefer a physical interview, walking into an organization for many, many reasons. They can see the body language of the interviewer. They can have a foothold of the organization context and things like that. While another 50% felt that, you know what, getting into a large campus, getting into some other zone is always very difficult. And I'm very comfortable doing a virtual interview, sitting in my living room, sitting in my study room with just a laptop to myself, nobody around. I am comfortable that way. So as of now, at least my study says that it's a 50-50%, right? But that choice is never given to a candidate, isn't it? The candidate is always there that you have to come on a virtual interview and you should be ready for it. So be prepared. If that's the way, if that is the way it's going to go forward, then we all equip ourselves to face a virtual interview in the best possible extent. Now, what are the common myths that we see? The common myths about any interview process is, number one, I don't think preparation is required. I've heard this from many students. You just go with the flow. How do you know what the interviewer is going? Preparation is never the key. So let me ask you a simple question, and you don't need to respond. Whatever interview you're going to attend, whether it is your father who attended this interview 25 years back, or you are going to sit through the interview, think about what's the first question that will be asked in the interview. Invariably, the answer is, tell me something about yourself or introduce yourself. Why don't you run me through your CV? And this question can be answered in asked in different forms. But technically, the first question is always about a self-introduction, about introduce yourself. And the irony is, how many of us can answer this question confidently? When I do these physical sessions in colleges or among student fraternity, less than 20-30% of the hands goes up, and they also have kind of memorized a particular answer which talks about who their father, who their mother is, what do they do, etc. Many of us don't really have the right answer to this particular question. That's very unfortunate. When you know that this is the first question that's going to come for an interview, that people are going to ask you for an interview, then you better be prepared. So, and that is where, when you talk to students, I kind of get this answer. Preparation is not really required. We can just go with the flow. No, it doesn't work that way. Preparation is absolutely required. There are certain frequently asked questions, which even today people ask, like standard questions, which anyway, I don't like asking this question. Where do you see 5 years from now? And things like that. So there are many frequently asked questions, and it's very important that we prepare. So preparation is the key. This is one of the biggest myths that we need to bust. Second, people see interview as a process in which the interviewer looks for ways and means to reject a candidate. Absolutely not true. The interviewer looks ways and means to hire you. Now, just look at it from an interviewer per se. Let's say if I am the recruiter and I come to your college to do an interview, or I do virtual interviews, and doing interviews can be an extremely tiring job. You ask any of this recruiter who sit and do this day in and day out. By the time the day ends, it's a physically, emotionally draining exercise. So they look for ways and means to hire you and not to reject you. Interview is not a rejection process. It is a selection process where they make avenues to make you guys speak and see how we can hire you. So that's the second myth that you might want to keep in mind. No research required. You know what? There is umpteen number of companies which is going to come. I just go. Why should I research about the company? Why should I research about the role? No, study says that people who do their homework, who research about the company, what are they into, etc., have a better chance of cracking an interview, whether it's a physical interview or whether it's a virtual interview. Company anyway knows that I'm interested because I'm showing up for the interview. You guys made a presentation and I'm showing up. So why should I kind of exhibit my interest? Like for this, there's a standard question when people ask, why should I give you this job? students sometimes say, look, I'm showing up for the interview. That makes sense. No, not necessarily. We know how it operates in many colleges where campus recruitments happen. The placement officer tells you need to go through this process. And we know as HR that you might not want to join us. So I think it is very critical that you exhibit your interest, the way you participate in an interview. Merely you're showing up for the interview does not necessarily exhibit your interest towards the company. This is something, one of my favorite. I have heard many students say the bigger the resume, the chances of you getting hired is higher. Absolutely false. So I've seen people coming with 5-6 pages and talks about some of their achievements in primary school to what they did in school, etc. Even a one A4 sheet is enough. What is there in the resume is very important. People increase the font size, put it across pages, doesn't really add any value. So the size of the resume is directly proportional to you landing a job. The answer is no. Also, very importantly, there is in an interview, there is always, not all questions have the right answers. There is something called as intelligent answer. And as an HR person, and this is purely my personal view, I like intelligent answers. I like honest answers when people tell me this is what I think. And so not necessarily you might need to give the right answer. For example, there is a standard bookish definition of answers, right? When they say, where do you see 5 years from now? One of the standard answer, which really irritates me is, I would like to sit in this chair. And this is an answer that we've been hearing for 20, 30 years. Rather, you might want to be give a very intelligent and a sincere answer. The next point is, this is very important for students. And I kind of always get baffled when I get students say that placements is only in pre-final year or mostly in final year. Why should I be really worried about first year and second year? No, it starts from the day you join college, because some of us come from other regional medium schools like Tamil medium or Marathi or Hindi. Communication becomes a big deal breaker. Your problem solving skills will not improve overnight just because you went through a 15-day crash course in training. So it has to start from day one. I mean, give you a simple example. Look at the percentage. There are companies which comes and tells you that I need 70% aggregate across all semesters, right? And some of us have arrears. During a good year, when the numbers of hiring is going to be significantly higher, companies will kind of relax some of these norms. This 70% can become 68%. Sometimes they'll allow you to have a history of arrears. 1 or 2 arrears is sometimes allowed, provided as long as you clear it when you join the company. But during a bad year, if the number of hiring is going to drop for whatever reason, because let's say there is an economic recession, or there is a slowdown, the market is not all that great. And from the conventional hiring of large number, the companies are going to increase their standard. The 70% can become 75%. Companies, there's no history of arrears to be allowed and so on and so forth. So you really cannot go back and erase the history if you had an arrear in your first year or second year. So it is very important as a student to maintain consistent academic record so that even during a bad year, you go beyond the eligibility criteria. And the last 2 points after myths that I want to bust is, one, we always think high grades, high ranks, and a good college, a good degree will land you in a good job. Absolutely false. I've seen many campuses where I've been going for campus interview a few years back, that the placement officer will come running and say, sir, the class topper, you have not hired him. He's by far the smartest guy in the class, but you've not hired him. That's because he didn't open up in the interview. So please understand that merely having high grades, merely having high CGPAs is not really going to guarantee that you're going to land up in this job, right? And that if you look at your own batch, you will be able to see that there is something beyond which recruiters look for, and that is something we need to crack. And the last, you're a great speaker, you're a great orator. Will that land you in a job? Probably not, and I'll tell you why. Communication is a big deal breaker. It can take you to a particular level. But I think what really matters is candidates who have the goals, candidates who have the vision. Okay. And so sometimes even an average communicator who has better role clarity, better goals in his head will be hired because he does not slutter. He does not go beats around the bush, rather than somebody who has the gift of the gab but has nothing here. Will find it extremely difficult to crack the interview process. So here are some 7-8 myths that you might want to keep in mind before getting into the interview process. So let's get in to the most important stage of the interview process, which is like before the interview, what do you do? And especially in a virtual interview. Now, what's a big difference between a virtual interview and a physical interview? In a physical interview, now let's say if you have to walk into my office, except that you have to be on time, you really do not necessarily worry about anything else. Of course, the dress code and all this stuff matters because you're walking into my zone. Okay, you're walking into my cabin, you're walking into my office. Okay, so that's technically, you don't need to worry about anything. Virtual interview, no matter how prepared you are, the biggest deal breaker could be technology. So I think it's very important for you to be extremely careful on technology and test as much as you can. Your internet speed, your laptop camera, does it really gives you good quality? Is there a call drop? Can you use your headphones instead of a speaker? And multiple such things. So let me tell you a fact. Now today we are doing this live. To do this live, we are just not going live. We have done dry runs. Did a dry run yesterday. We did a dry run today. I have changed the setting in 2 different rooms to ensure that where does have better connectivity. And just when I was about to start today, I found an auto guy going right outside with corona awareness video, I mean audio, in blaring sound. So those are not things within my control. But it's very critical, my dear friends, that if you are attending a virtual interview, test technology. Check be aware of what technology is all about. Is it on Google Skype? Is it on Skype? Is it on WebEx? Is it on Microsoft Teams? Is it on Duo? It's on Zoom. Be familiar. Have a couple of mock rounds. It's very, very critical. Try this technology in different times, your internet speed at different times, and be sure that it works. Number one. Beyond that, if something happens that is really not in your control, because especially for tech jobs, there is a study which says that recruiters really like tech savvy candidates. And if you are somebody who aces technology, I think that's an added advantage. So why do you want to miss that? Second, choose the location. Very critical. All of us, most of us in India, do not have the luxury of having something called as a home office, even for working professionals like us. So if you're a student, choose the best place at your home to face this interview. Now, it should be a place which is well lit. More importantly, it should be neat and tidy. I would any day prefer a blank wall. If you do not have any other place, your laptop and a blank wall is perfectly fine. So right now I'm sitting in my library at home. So you just have the bookshelf at the background. But otherwise, choose a place which is calm, neat, and tidy. Blank walls is perfectly fine. Let's say you're taking a call from the hostel rooms. I mean, sometimes virtual interview happens in hostels. And if you're giving your pre-placement, your final campus interview through virtual interviews, please be extremely careful, because hostel rooms need not necessarily be very neatly maintained. You have your friends around and all this stuff. Just go to a place where there is a decent wall, or if it's a classroom, have a blank wall and take this interview. Placement of laptops is very critical. So in this COVID situation, this is my 12th webinar, and I'm still learning, and I need to accept that I still learn, because very important is how you place your laptop. Where does the camera looks? I mean, where is the camera and where do you look in? So they always say the best position is to maintain eye contact with the camera of your laptop, not look down or look up. So that's the position that you maintain, so that the other side, the person who's seeing the screen, also has a good visual of yourself. And zero distraction. Very, very critical to have a zero distraction. You don't want to have a TV which is blaring, your brother or sister playing some loud music. It's very important you tell them that, look, I'm going to give an interview. I need some uninterrupted time. So please, can you switch off some of these things before I finish this interview? So I think choosing the location, you just don't walk in straight and do this interview. And here I want to share this incident. So there was this candidate who spoke about how organized and how he's a cleanliness freak as one of his strengths. And right behind the interview, I could see there was all clothes piled up. There was a bucket filled with clothes right behind. And that's a visual that I'm getting to see on the other side. So sometimes you need to be extremely careful about what is there in the background, who's coming in the background. So choose the location, very, very critical. 3, your login information. Now, in a physical interview, your body language, the way you carry yourself, the handshake, all the stuff creates a first impression, the way you smile and all this stuff. In the virtual world, they always say your login ID is kind of creates a first impression. So what's the big deal about having a login ID? You know what, when we are in school and college, most of us have this crazy email IDs that we have, and most of us have more than 4 or 5 IDs, and we don't know which ID where we are giving it for. So I have seen people saying streetcat at whatever.com, no, crazy fighter, and some people have this habit of reversing their name, putting their name in the reverse order at gmail.com. Now, please consider the guy who's going to send you this email link to you. Now, it's going to be Herculean task for him to type your email ID. So my sincere request is your virtual ID, your login ID is something which has to be very simple. Use your first name and last name. And with that combination, if you can create an email ID, that will be very, very useful. Avoid characters like 0 and 1, which can be mistaken for O and L, or sometimes even avoid characters, special characters, too many special characters that can avoid confusion. So login information is something, these are things that we actually take it for granted. But from a recruiter perspective, if you ask them, chances of them missing your email ID with just one character, and you will not get the invite for the interview. So I've seen many, many cases getting missed out like that. So please have a professional login ID. Number 4, research about the organization. This is one thing which I find not too many people taking it very seriously, especially during a campus interview. And now, what is research about the company? I mean, about the organization? We are not going to ask you to do an extensive research. Now, let's say if you're applying for company ABC, a simple Google up about this company is enough. Okay, what is the latest news? What's the leadership looks like? Where are they based? What's the stock price for today? These are information. Even you just type, you get all this information. What their headcount looks like. What is their core domain? What do they work? Is it a product company? It's a service company? Is it a consulting organization? What are they basically into? I think these are very critical information. Your interview, bulk of the questions will not be around these areas, but the fact that you speak something about my organization, as a recruiter, I will be fairly sure, okay, this guy has taken the efforts to know something about my organization, rather than coming and saying, okay, you know what, I'm attending 15, 16 interviews. This is one among them. So I really don't care. That kind of an attitude is really not going to help. So doing basic research about the organization, basic current affairs about the organization. If they are in the news for the positive reason, please do look up. If they have the new product that has been launched, if they have had an excellent quarter, if they had an excellent annual results, which have just published, look up for this information. All this is available at the click of the button. So I personally find that people who ace virtual interviews are also people who kind of do a good research about the organization. So that's very, very critical. And this is very interesting. I always tell the if you know who's going to interview you, okay, now let's say let's say Sujit is going to do the interview. Now, if you are going to be as part of this session, there could be multiple ways in which you could have attended this session. Your college would have said, you know what, the NASSCOM is doing this session. Why don't you attend? Okay, so that is one way of looking at it. Second, some of you would have known this guy. Okay, I've heard this name somewhere. So I know. Okay, so let me attend this particular session. For some of you who have no clue on who I am, the first thing that people will do is to Google up and see who's this Sujit, right? And that's a standard thing which is kind of imbibed in each one of us. The first thing that we do is to Google up. And when you Google, it will show you your Facebook profile, your LinkedIn profile. So if you are on YouTube, you will find a flurry of information coming and falling in there. Now, in a campus interview, you will not have too much opportunity to Google up about the interviewer or the HR person. But just in case you know that this is the person who's going to do the interview, Googling up about some basic information will help you to understand if there is any common interest. Is there a way you can connect the dots? Like, for example, let's say if you have to Google up about myself, you will find that I run an NGO apart from as an HR professional. You know that I'm into public speaking, I'm into career counseling. So there are some common interests. Now, let's say as a candidate, you have those interests. Probably during the interview, chance of we connecting is slightly better. So it is called connecting the dots. There is no guarantee that you will get the job, but there is a connecting point. And here there was a there is a very interesting incident. This happened about 4 or 5 years back. When one girl, when I was interviewing, she said, "Sir, you and I are connected on Facebook. You are my Facebook friend." I said, "Oh, really?" And then she said, "Because you are my Facebook friend, I know you will give my job." No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, if you know that there is a specific set of interest that the interviewer has, probably it will help you to break ice on what we call as a rapport building question, etc. It will help you to break ice. There will be some common points that, and don't overdo this. It's not like going and kind of trolling him on Facebook to see what he does, etc. But basic information is any day advantageous. We already spoke about distractions during the interview. Please avoid all kinds of distractions. Now, in a virtual interview, one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people making, especially for college students, is to have the friends in the same room. Nothing can be more catastrophic than that. So let's say if I do the interview, my friends are sitting in the opposite. Don't have a headphone, so it's on the speaker. Whatever questions the candidates are, the interviewer is asking is available on the speaker, and your friends are googling up and giving answers. In a virtual interview, what is the distraction for the interviewer is also almost zero. He has the only job of looking into the screen, looking into you. The minute eye contact you maintain outside, looking at something else, will kind of put you in a precarious position. So never ever make that mistake. Don't search for answers when somebody is asking you a question. Don't Google up and search for answers. If I do this, let's say if I go and type this, somebody is asking a question, it is kind of a giveaway. So as much as possible, not as much as possible, 100%, do not have anybody else inside your room. It is a short way of not passing the interview. Okay, so I don't know what's the secret of success, how to ace virtual interviews, but I can tell you what can 100% guarantee you to fail the interview is to have friends inside and who can prompt you to speak, etc. Not a good idea at all. And even for those it has worked here and there, please don't think that is going to work for everybody. It's a very bad idea. So get rid of distractions, TV, music, cell phone. In fact, don't even take virtual interviews with a cell phone. Preferably a laptop. A big screen is any day advisable. FAQs is a seventh point which you need to be careful about. See, I look at it interview as a mind game. It's not just on the day of the interview that you crack the puzzle. It is a mind game. So I always, even today, I visualize. I do this every day because public speaking is something that I do. For this webinar, I practiced. I envisage, okay, these are the kind of things that I will, these are the kind of setup that I will have. Tomorrow, if you're going to go for an interview, you visualize that there is an interviewer on the other side. These are some of the questions that he's going to ask you. And some of the frequently asked questions, I'll have some of the best answers. A simple tip, I have seen people who ace interviews are not the ones who have a wealth of information. You would have done 101 things, but the interviewer will not have the time to listen to all of this. He just has 20-30 minutes. And in that 20-30 minutes, you need to talk about what is the most important stuff that you want to highlight. So the great ones who crack interviews actually will pin it down to these are 5-6 must have points that I need to speak. The interviewer needs to know this. The others are frills, and I'm really not bothered. So which means for some of the frequently asked questions, if you have done a summer internship and if you want to talk about it, speak about it. If you have won a hackathon, put that as part of your intro itself, that you won this particular prize, that you published so many papers, you've cleared so many certifications. So it is very critical that you prepare yourself with this frequently asked questions. Okay, and I'll talk about how you move the interviewer to your zone during the interview process. So FAQs, getting answers for FAQs is very important. Please do follow the company on social media. We anyway follow so many celebrities on Twitter and Facebook and Insta and so on. It's for a campus hiring candidate, it is very critical that you actually follow the companies of your choice on social media. Companies do put a lot of information on social media on some of the latest stuff that's happening, some of the latest happenings with employees. It helps you to know the culture of the organization. For example, I still remember the time when Infosys relaxed the dress code It was out on social media, and in one of the interviews, people, when we asked, what do you like about the Infosys, one of the candidates said, you recently revamped your dress code policy, and I thought it was cool for Gen Z. It's the great stuff. So it made me think that these guys are following us on social media. So you will have a wealth of information. So please do follow these companies on social media. Practice and don't memorize. Now, this is something that you need to get it right. Okay. Now, an interview is a social occasion. So please be genuine. Uh, you have to practice. Like, for example, a mock interview. Let's say if you are not too very good with English, speak slowly, have a friend on the opposite side, ask him or her to ask you these frequently asked questions, but practice, don't memorize. One of the biggest things that I've seen is people memorize this question, tell me something about you. So it is like a rhyme. It will go past, and then it will stop because they get stuck. Now, rather, practice the script slowly, speak slowly. You don't need to be in a hurry. Good preparation is always the key. And I always say this, move the interview to your zone. See, please remember, interview is a social occasion. The candidate resume, the resume that you give the interviewer, that is where bulk of your questions are going to come from. The HR or the recruiter or the technical guy who's going to interview you is not there to show that he is smarter than you. Nobody does that, okay? Unless and until he's a psychopath. Everybody does that purely to make you comfortable and how do I hire you, right? So what can you do is you need to be very clear about what do you want to talk about in the interview. For example, in the resume, if you say, this is my strength, data networking is my strength, C++, I know Python, this is my strength, you are moving the interviewer into your zone so that you ask more questions in an area of your strength. So in simple analogy, let's say cricket. We all watch cricket, and that's a sport. I'm using cricket because majority of us watch it. Now let's take Mahendra Singh Dhoni as an example. Mahendra Singh Dhoni is not referred as the classic uh, textbook cricketer. Okay, like he's not like the Rahul Dravid or not like the Sachin Tendulkar, who was the best cricketing shots and all this stuff. He goes by his raw instinct. He plays to its strengths, and that's where you find most of the teams who bowls to Mahendra Singh Dhoni will not bowl to his strength. His strength is he swings his arms. Okay, so anything outside the off stump, he can whack it for a six. But if you bowl closer to your body, that is not an area which he might not be too comfortable with, right? An interviewer, a classic cricket players always say this. You ask any of the cricketing greats, they always say that I want the bowler to bowl to my strength. And that is exactly what happens in an interview. You ask the interview, you lead the interview in such a way that the interviewer is going to ask you a question which is to your strength, and you answer that question brilliantly. And that's the best way to create a great impression. So if you're talking about a hackathon, lead the question in the interview, I mean, in the initial intro round, so that the natural progression is towards that area. And you speak about a hackathon, how you won it, what was the solution that you developed, and so on and so forth. So it is a great art. It will come out of practice. But if you remember that interview is not a place they look for to reject you, but an interview is a place where they want to select you. And the last and the most important one, which is the most important aspect, prepare a good resume. A resume is very, very important. Even a one-page honest resume is enough. We don't need to listen to how you won the fancy dress competition in first standard and stuff like that. Talk about hackathons, talk about the competitions that you participated. Not doesn't mean that you have to win. Even, okay, I participated 17 hackathons and I've not won a single prize. We have hired people like that for the simple reason that the guy wants to go and do something. Certifications beyond my college degree, what other certifications do I have? I always ask this question. When was the last time you did something for the first time? During this lockdown period, what are we doing? Are we binge watching Netflix and Amazon and so on and so forth? Or is there a certification that I can pick up? Now, at this stage in my career, I have already signed up for 3-4 courses, which I want to do. And this ranges from learning the American Recorder to origami to one of the professional HR certification. So as many certifications as possible. You are telling the interviewer that, look, I'm very, very serious about my career. So it's very important that your resume is honest. Don't fake stories. Most often than not, a good number of interviews are done and dusted in the first 2 minutes when the recruiter finds that you have given a fake information or a false information. And it could sometimes be as simple as in a section like a hobby, where you have not practiced a hobby and you have just faked that information. And the poor recruiter would have asked that question as a rapport building question. Oh, that's your hobby. So what do you do? And then you have never practiced that hobby because you have copied it from somebody else's CV, and the first interaction itself is kind of a giveaway because it says that you're not a genuine person. So keep the CV as honest as possible, and that's the best way to create a winning impression. All right, we move to the last stage, which is about during the interview. What do you do? As in a physical interview, it is very important in a virtual interview to be on time. It's very, very critical. If it's a 3 o'clock interview, you please be ready at 2:45. And because you never know how technology can go for. Sometimes the recruiter can join late, but you never be late. That creates a first impression, number one. Number two, don't forget to smile in a virtual interview, because here we are obsessed about seeing ourselves in the screen. So we don't know how people, and this is not something that we are used to. Even webinars are not something that I am used to. I still keep learning the trick. But it's very important that you smile, you greet. The very basic courtesy is to thank the recruiter for the time that he or she is giving you for this interview process. That's number two. Three, body language, a big deal breaker. In a physical interview, there is so much that is gauged by the body language of the person. That's an advantage in a physical interview on both sides. You also get to know what the panel is thinking about when you give an answer. The way you walk, the handshake, everything is a giveaway. But in a virtual interview, none of that is possible. You have a screen and you have somebody looking into you and you're looking into that particular person. So what is the biggest thing in a biggest deal breaker in an interview, in a virtual interview in terms of body language, is your eye contact. It is extremely important in a virtual interview to maintain quality eye contact with the person who's sitting right opposite. Okay? Because there is no other distraction for the interviewer. The interviewer is going to look into you all the time. Now, when I say eye contact, now there is a particular distance that I maintain right now. Just imagine if I come closer like this and speak to you. Is this very comfortable? Absolutely, it's not comfortable. So one of the biggest goof ups which people commit in a virtual interview is sometimes they get too very obsessed about themselves as to how they look into the screen. Okay, I have seen people coming and checking their beard, a hairstyle all the time, and do all kind of weird stuff without realizing was you're visible on the other side. So it's not about you. Maintaining eye contact is just sit at a comfortable distance, 2 feet away from your laptop, with your headphones on, and just look into the screen. You don't need to really worry about how you look. You just look into the screen and maintain eye contact at all times. If the other person's video will always be available, please check their interest level. Now, if you are talking too much, then it is also visible on the other side. So body language is not just about what you exhibit. Body language is also about reading the other person, whether you are, see, for example, you present something very interesting, automatically the other person's eyebrows goes up, they get interested. A normal tendency when you get interested is to you just lean forward and okay, and they'll get dwell deeper. Okay, nodding of head is one way to acknowledge that the other person is interested in the conversation. So body language is very, very key. And in a virtual interview, it is something which comes with practice, but keep doing it. So more of mock interviews is advantageous. Smile, both in a physical interview and in a virtual interview. Smile. It's a big gift God has given. It eases a lot of situations. So that's something which is very, very important. So body language is another key aspect that you might want to, and eye contact at all times is very critical. And we did talk about interview being a mind game. Now, I told you before, resume is where most of your questions are going to come from. So which means you need to be clear about every single point that you have called out in your resume, which means be rest assured you'll have questions from your summer internships. Be rest assured you'll have questions around your project, your final year project. What was your role in the project? Okay, what was this internship all about? Be rest assured that if you have participated in hackathons, they will ask you about what was there in the hackathons. Is there common interest? Beyond studies, is there other interests? Are you into some volunteering work? Do you have any other interests? Are you in sports, etc., etc., etc.? So whatever is listed down in the interview, create an opportunity to speak, and that is where a good number of questions are going to come from. All certifications, what have you done, etc., etc., will come in from there. The last 2 points in the interview process, many candidates don't realize that there is a specific technique that most of the recruiters will, and they think that the questions are asked in a haphazard manner. No, it's not that way. None of the certified good recruiters will do that. For example, let's take IT as an example. Let's take software engineer as a role that I want to hire you from. Now, for a role called software engineer, whether it is TCS, Infosys, Cognizant, or any top IT organization, there are predefined competencies that for which we will hire for that role. Now, what are some of these competencies? If I want to hire a software engineer, I would want somebody who's good with analytical and logical reasoning, right? Verbal reasoning, which means good, decent English, is something which is required. I need to know whether this person has basic coding skills, right? Basic domain depth of the subject of study. Now, you could be an ECE graduate, you could be a EEE graduate, you could be a mechanical engineer, but what are some of the basic domain depth that you have in that subject? Problem solving skills, communication skills, and learnability and flexibility. Now, if you look at it, these are about some 7-8 competencies that we look for. Now, you just need to apply your mind and say in the interview, it is only the 7-8 competencies, questions related to the 7-8 competencies is what is going to be asked for. So how can analytical and logical reasoning be tested? Most of the companies will give you a test, a puzzle, and the test is the first stage you cross and come for the interview. Now, let's say you have done that in a virtual interview. Can there be an online puzzle or can there be an online problem that can be given? 100% yes. You should anticipate something like that. And if that comes, how will you solve the problem? Many qualified recruiters don't really look for the final answer. They look for the approach that you've done. And as long as your approach is fine, even if the final answer is not all that great, chances of you being hired is still there for that particular competency. Verbal reasoning, which means your speaking and listening skills, your basic grammar, and stuff like that. And that is also being tested in the interview, is a classic way to evaluate your communication skills. Coding, there can be a simple situation given to you and you'll be asked to code. So how quickly can you turn around and write a code and give it back to the candidate, to the interviewer? Basic domain depth, and this is an area which we have kind of struggled. People talk about very superficial stuff about what they've learned in college. And let's say you're a mechanical engineer and the interviewer on the other side is a mechanical engineer turned IT professional, bad luck, and he goes one level deeper. And if you do not have the required information, it kind of shows up that you are not too very serious about it. So basic domain depth is about your subject of study is something which is very important, and that's where all the certifications, etc., can come in handy. They use a technique called CBI, which is the competency-based interviewing skills. Now, which means in a competency-based interviewing skills, what will happen is the interviewer will ask you a lot of open-ended questions. For example, give me an example where you solved a problem, okay? Where you demonstrated leadership. Give me an example where you demonstrated learnability skills. When you say that I'm very flexible, I'm very learnable and all this stuff, these are open-ended questions. So these are real-life examples that you would want to give. Give me an example where you demonstrated leadership in college. So it could be as simple as a symposium that you led and you ran, but you will talk about team, but in that team, you will talk about your contribution. What did you do? How did you motivate and things like that? Always be careful about open-ended questions. In an open-ended question, the interviewer is giving the long rope to you to speak, and from there on, there will be further questions coming up. And every question that a recruiter is asking, don't think it's a haphazard question. It is always related to a competency. Communication, very simple for us to evaluate by the way you speak, but analytical, verbal reasoning, coding are straight giveaways. The answer is right there. Learnability, okay, how quick, how fast can you learn a new technology? How fast can you unlearn what you learned yesterday? Because if you want to get into IT, what we look for is your ability to learn new things and also your ability to unlearn what you learned yesterday. Unlike college, no organizations will give you study holidays to learn a new technology. So how fast you equip, how globally mobile you are, how fast you can move from one location to another, how fast can you move from one technology to another. If you can demonstrate some of this during the interview, even with your past examples, I think that will be a big deal breaker for you in an interview. The interview always starts like the funnel approach, where the mouth of the funnel is big. A lot of rapport building questions, open-ended questions will be asked, and it then gets narrowed down further and further and further, and what we call as probing questions. Normally, a good interview will take time. They do spend time. There are organizations which does about 10, 12 rounds of interview, etc. So they will take time. Good for you. If you spend more rounds, you will learn a lot more. And if I were a recruiter, there are a good number of HR people who belong to the tribe like me. I hire for an attitude. Competency comes second. Okay? So if you are a guy with great competency and poor attitude, the chance of me hiring you is very, very low. Why, as against if you are a guy with a great attitude, but not so great competency, because competency can be taught, attitude cannot be. So it is very important how you project yourself in the interview, and especially if you have to work in teams, it is that attitude which will help you to work in teams. So be very, very careful about how you demonstrate your attitude during the entire interview process. Last 2 points, my dear friends: maintain a clean social media profile. This is my humble request. There is so much of hatred being spread, and there are groups which does that in Twitter and Insta and in Facebook. You please stay away, because there are companies which does social media profiling. Before they recruit, if I want to do a social media profiling of you, I don't want you to make any racist comments, any religious comments, any casteist comment, etc. So as long as you maintain a social media profile, a good, decent social media profile. I'm not saying all organization does that, but why do you want to land up in a trouble? So please maintain a good social media profile. On the last point, and which is this, I want to end this with a story. Um, all this is fine, but I think one of the biggest deal breaker in an interview is something called as a presence of mind. And these are things which you can never anticipate. An interviewer can ask you anything. But I just want to give you an example. I did mention to you guys about a foundation that I run. I run an NGO called Matram, where about 937 underprivileged kids are getting educated. And for me, the biggest lesson that I've learned is when you coach these kids to go and attend interviews. Now, who are these 937 kids? A good number of these are orphan children, single children with single parent. About 750 are girls. Most of them have studied in government schools. Most of them have not had 3 square meals a day when they were in school, so on and so forth, coming from extreme troubled circumstance. So I just want to reflect on one particular girl whom we admitted into our foundation 5 years back. And I will still not forget, it was May 17th, and in Chennai, May is the hottest month. It's about mercury will reel at 42, 43 degrees Celsius. And she's coming to an interview along with her mother. No footwear. Okay, it was wearing barefoot, walking barefoot, and she was holding a bag, shopping bag with all clothes stuffed inside. Extremely dark complexion, and more than the complexion, I think she used to work in fields, and because of which there is this salt which comes in there on your body. You can see that the skin is not in very good condition, but had an engineering cutoff of something like 192 for out of 200. She cannot speak a single word in English. So we admitted her into one of the engineering colleges in Chennai. And I remember speaking to my co-founders then, saying, look, this girl will finish her engineering because she's sound, but her soft skills are so bad. I don't know how we are going to place her. So for the next 4 years, we started to work with her slowly. Communication improved, but not to the extent that she will go and crack the interview. So I used to do this virtual interviews with my students, and I did about 2 full days of training with this girl. And on the final day, I called her home for a face-to-face interview. For 2 hours non-stop, I spoke to her. I said, look, you're weak in English, so speak slowly. You speak about what your strengths are and so on and so forth. I was extremely worried about this girl. Now, in the foundation, I forget that I'm not an HR person. Okay, for me, it's like my children are going for this interview. So I can see that I was really tense. And this girl on the other side sat there for 2 hours, listened to me completely. And finally, when I asked her if you have any questions, she held my left hand and she said something in Tamil, which I'll translate you for English. She said, she looked into my eyes and she said, she calls me Anna. She says, Anna, looks like you're very tensed about me. Don't worry. Tomorrow evening, I will call you and I'll say, give you the good news that I've cracked the interview. And I didn't know. how confident she was. So I asked her, how do you say that you're so confident? She says, you were the one who taught us to focus on our strengths, what I'm good at. And today you are exactly saying the opposite. The interview that I'm going to give is for a global IT consulting organization, and they look for coding skills. Communication is important, but I will manage. But I want to tell you, Anna, there is nobody better than me in my college who can write better software codes. And that is what with which I'm going to crack this interview. And I was extremely happy when she said that. The next day, when she gave the interview, the HR person who did the interview was a friend of mine. I didn't know that he was going for the interview. He called me and he said, look, I found this girl, and she said she knows you. She is a great find for my organization. And I said, why are you saying that? She said, of course, she's technically strong. She wrote some brilliant codes. But the final question is one age-old question I asked her. And I asked her, why should I give you this job? And she gave me one of the most honest answers. And she said, you know what? I'll give you two answers, two things why I need this job. I live in a 10 by 10 room. Seven of us stay in this room, and I'm the first generation learner. Okay, nobody else from my village has even gone to college. I'm the first person to even go to college. So that way, getting a job, I think my family will be uplifted from poverty. Okay, now that's one reason, and that's an honest reason. But the second main reason is not that. I study in a foundation where there are 937 kids, and I have struggled all along to come to this particular position. Tomorrow, if I have this job, you know what? My friends, if this girl can get this job, it will give them so much of hope for the other underprivileged children also to dream big. If I can crack it, so can they crack it. So this honest answer actually tilted the decision in her favor. And the HR person said, look, she was brutally honest. She was brutally honest. Today, she works for a global MNC and doing exceedingly well. So sometimes, my dear friends, in an interview, it's all about being honest, using your presence of mind, which is the most important key. So with which I thought I will close. Just that, please be aware of some of the common goof ups. Don't look elsewhere in an interview. Have a clean background. Please don't play with your hair, beard, and stuff like. Don't be self-obsessed about your looks. Please avoid excess makeup, because on screen you can either look too bright, which is not a great idea. Having friends in the same room, we did speak about, it's not a good idea. I had a strange incident where I found the candidate was wearing only one part of the headphones. The other headphones was missing. Okay, so I asked him, where is the other headphones? And then it was apparently his friend was sitting right next to him with the other headphones. So not a great idea at all. And please ensure that when when the interview is over, thank the candidate, thank the interviewer and exit the call properly. Please remember, exit the call properly. I did an interview and the candidate actually had some nice words for me. And he didn't realize that I was still on the call. So sometimes it's not a great idea. So please exit the call carefully. And thank you. Thank the candidate, thank the interviewer for his or her time, and do follow up for this status. So that's all I have. I think it was wonderful interacting with you, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Sujit, for that masterclass to crack virtual interviews. Meanwhile, we have received a lot of interesting questions, though I see that most of them you have already answered during the session itself, but I will pick a few anyways. We got a lot of questions on body language. Okay. So one thing which is coming up is, so what does one do if the interviewer decides not to switch on their video? And the interview can see, only the candidate's video. So you behave as if the person can see you, right? But because you can't see, like right now I can see you can't see, how do I judge their reaction?
Yeah. Very unfortunate. It can happen at times, but you then presume that the interviewer is watching you all the time. Okay, very politely, you can ask to start with. If the interviewer has set the expectations very clearly, look, I cannot come on the video, unfortunately, for whatever reason, technical reason or whatever, and he is taking it over a call, you really don't push it forward saying, can you come on video? But otherwise, very politely, you can ask the interviewer saying, I can't see you on video. And is there a way you can join? And if then he or she has to respond to you saying, look, I can't join. So if that is the case, you assume that the other person is seeing you. You just look into the laptop camera screen and speak. Okay, assume that the other person is on the other side. Rarely can that happen, but if it happens, really the candidate doesn't really have a choice. Okay, you have to imagine that the other person is on the other side. Just like what I'm doing right now, I'm actually looking into the laptop and speaking to thousands of students who are listening to this webinar. I envisage that all of you are paying attention to me. So that's what you need to do.
Thank you, Sujit. Another question which I'm getting a lot is how to build our confidence. Since we are like you rightly say, within our comfort zones, but we are still quite nervous when we are going online because we have not practiced for it. So how to build our confidence? How do we make sure that we don't get nervous at the time of the interview, make some grammatical errors or something similar around that?
Practice. If you have butterflies in your stomach, you belong to my breed. Okay. Now, I keep account on the number of lectures. I have delivered 2,457 lectures, and this is 2,458. And till the session started, I had butterflies in my stomach. Very simple. I will not be very tensed if I have to speak up on stage. It comes natural. You have practiced so well that you have a physical contact. I know I can speak to students, no matter how big the audience are. But in a virtual medium, for the 10, 11 webinars, this is something new. The only way you can overcome fear, the only way you can overcome a low confidence is to practice. When you practice, you overcome that fear, right? Don't make this mistake. Now, for example, what you're seeing me from there is just a screen, but can you see this? These are all notes that I made for myself, and it was all here. So it's very critical that you practice and give it your best. Do mock sessions. I have done mock sessions. I have changed this angle so many times to ensure that, okay, this shirt that I'm wearing right now, my wife said you have to change the shirt color. The one you were wearing earlier was not okay. So it is very critical that when you are there, you give it your best. So the best way to build confidence is to practice, seek feedback, ask for honest feedback, and ask people to say what is working fine, what is not working fine. And just by practicing, you will overcome this fear, right? And then you will master it. But in an interview, I will be lying if I tell you that people will not be tensed. Now remember, even if you are rejected in an interview, I keep telling this to my foundation kids. Even if you're rejected in an interview, you need to know the reason why you got rejected. Many of my students come and say, no, you don't know why I did well. I don't know why I got rejected. Now that's a very sorry state of affairs. Even in an interview rejection, you need to know what is that one or two things that I will learn, which I will not commit the same mistake in the next interview. So it is only practice, practice, and practice.
Thank you, Sujit. That was very insightful. And that's all we have time for today. Sujit, you want to say something to us students before we get ready to face the real world?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You guess what? This is unprecedented time. Something like this happened 101 years back in the year 1918 or 1919 during the Spanish flu. And once we overcome this, each one of you who are listening to this webinar, you will have a story to tell to your future generation, to your children, and stuff like that, right? Don't panic. I think what is critical. I have never come across a student who has good grades, who's good with communication skills, who's an extrovert or introvert doesn't really matter, but somebody who has mastered any of these skills, struggling to find a job. Now use this time judiciously. My sincere request is have loads of fun at home, stay at home. You can do Netflix, Amazon Prime, do whatever, but every day my request is as minimal as 30 minutes to 1 hour. Spend time to reskill yourself. Even a small TED video will open up horizons, and make that as an habit. So reskill yourself, stay ahead of the curve, and practice. And that is what is going to land you in a dream job and build a great career. And when you are building a career, my dear friends, always build your career based on your strengths, based on what you're good at, because that is what is going to give you the ultimate satisfaction. Never join a company because the kind of money that they're going to give you, because that will drain you out over a particular period of time. But select a career, choose a career where you can play to your strengths. And even if you're not making a lot of money in the beginning, the kind of satisfaction that you will get and the job that you do will help you gain immense satisfaction, both in terms of money, in terms of career progression, and things like that as days goes by. So just focus on your skills. Wishing you good luck and Godspeed. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Amrita and NASCOM, Team NASCOM, for this wonderful opportunity. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Sujit. Friends, that is all we have time for today. Do stay tuned to our social media channels for information on further sessions. In case of any query or information, you can reach us at sscnascom@nascom.in. Thank you once again. Goodbye for now.